Zack Bagans has once again taken a situation that is utterly tragic, nothing to do with Zack in the slightest, and has managed to make it all about Zack. And I don't know how they've managed it. I know I'm incredibly late to the party on this one, but I've been busy over the past weekend, so I do apologise for being a bit late to the news. But obviously, we had the news last week, incredibly sad. It was confirmed by Nespa and, friends and family of Dan Rivera that unfortunately Dan Rivera passed away at the age of 54. Incredibly young age. Now, whilst this was incredibly saddening, the media instantly turned to the Annabelle doll. Now, obviously, the Annabelle doll was made incredibly famous because of the Conjuring franchise, Ed and Lorraine Warren. It is supposedly the most haunted artifact in the entire world. And instantly, instead of this, even though the autopsy reports and the police reports states that there's nothing suspicious or unusual about Dan Rivera's passing, instantly, the media took this and were like, oh, the Annabelle doll must be to blame. It's incredibly suspicious. And it just, all of a sudden, the narrative started to overshadow Dan Rivera's passing, and it was like more focused on the Annabelle doll. Some would say that's to be expected. Some would say it's an incredible shame. But Zak Bagans, of course, as we all know him, star of Ghost Adventures and stuff, has chimed in on the situation. I'm not sure why, but he's done a couple of exclusive interviews, one with E! News, with MSN News and stuff like this. And they're like, Ghost Adventures star Zak Bagans, this is the header by the way, was very affected by Annabelle doll before Dan Rivera's death. Why? I don't understand. Anyway, obviously, E! News did put out this little video kind of talking about the passing of Dan Rivera.
New details emerging surrounding the death of Annabelle doll expert Dan Rivera, who died at 54 years old on July 13th while touring cross-country with the horror relic. Pennsylvania police sharing a report on X July 16th, saying Dan was discovered by co-workers in his hotel room. USA Today previously reported he was being given CPR when first responders arrived. The report now noting nothing unusual or suspicious was observed at the scene, as law enforcement awaits results from Dan's autopsy, with no cause of death details being shared, but the reports listed natural causes for now. Dan was a longtime member of the New England Society of Psychic Research, which held a viewing of the Annabelle doll hosted by Dan one day before he died. Now the organization saying in a statement, their tour with this supposedly haunted Raggedy Ann doll will carry on. Quote, "We believe with all our hearts that Dan would have wanted the work to continue." The group was founded by legendary demonologist Lorraine and Ed Warren, whose work inspired the Conjuring horror franchise, including their haunted history with Annabelle, whom the pair once said was demonically possessed.
We are beyond terrified. We don't know what's going on or what to do. Can you help us?
Yes, we can. Firstly, there's no such thing as Annabelle, and there never was.
Ghosts don't possess such power. I think what we have here is something extremely manipulative. It's something inhuman.
Now, obviously, the facts are all there, but it's on the article. So Zak Bagans has now obviously come out to talk about it. This was on the 17th of July, so I'm about a week late on this, which is poor by my standards. But Zak Bagans shared his own experience with Annabelle, the supposedly haunted doll behind the Conjuring movies, after fellow paranormal investigator Dan Rivera died while traveling with the toy. Interesting that they've labeled it a toy. I don't think I've... Obviously, ultimately it's a cloth doll, so it would be labeled as a toy, but I've never really heard it being tarred as such. But now, Zak Bagans is speaking after the passing of fellow paranormal investigator Dan Rivera, who was travelling with the purportedly haunted doll at the time of his death. Like Rivera, the Ghost Hunters star has had close encounters with Annabelle, which the New England Society of Psychic Research, NESPA, has deemed a demonically possessed item in its collection. Quote, "I did have the opportunity to investigate Annabelle when the owner brought her to my museum in 2017, Bagans told Us Weekly in an interview published on July 16th. I got very affected by her, and it kinda caused me to touch the doll." He continued, "The owner didn't like that too much." Now, obviously that's a very interesting statement there, that, you know, the doll has allegedly possessed or, you know, enchanted Zak in some capacity to want to reach out, and not want to, but actually physically reach out and touch the doll, which is something that is apparently a big no-no. But then again, Zak does get possessed every other day. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't really stand for much. Now, the haunting story behind the Annabelle doll obviously came in 1968 when the student nurse and her roommate started noticing strange occurrences. But what really kind of got to me here is the fact that there's a little mention of it here. So the spooky lore surrounding Annabelle served as an inspiration behind the Conjuring movie franchise. Rivera, who worked with Nespa for over a decade, was in the middle of the tour when the Raggedy Ann doll was discovered. He was discovered dead at the Pennsylvania hotel on July 13th. While the 54-year-old's cause of death has been revealed as pending an autopsy, local police said nothing unusual and suspicious was observed at the scene. In July 15th statement, the Nespa shared that the firm was still coming to terms with the profound loss, but no immediate plans to cancel the tour with Annabelle, which is scheduled to hit Maine in September. We believe with all our heart that Dan would have wanted us to continue with our work. They explained, we carry his spirit with us in everything that we do. In the wake of Rivera's passing, Bagans told Weekly, my thoughts and prayers go out to the family and friends. Now, I find this article and the other articles that have come out incredibly strange because, you know, it's, again, the passing of Dan Rivera is once again just completely overshadowed by, this is my encounter, look at what happened to me when I saw the Annabelle doll. And it's like, I don't know, it just rubs me up the wrong way, because ultimately, at the heart of it, a man has passed away, right? Regardless of what you believe, whether you believe in the Annabelle doll, whether you don't believe in the Annabelle doll, whether you've had an experience or not, someone's passed away, alright? And that should be the focus. But instead of that being the focus, it's like, oh, the doll did it. Oh, it's so suspicious that the doll was there when he passed away. Oh, he was on tour with the doll. And then it's like, Bagans gets involved and it's like, oh, but I had this crazy encounter. Oh, by the way, my thoughts and prayers are with the family. Now, obviously, that could just be the way that the article is written. It just feels like he's shoehorned in for the sake of being shoehorned in. It's like, something's happened in the paranormal. Let's get Zak Bagans' comments on it because that brings clicks and views. You know, do you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know, it just rubs me the wrong way, and I've made a video about it last week about the fact that Dan Rivera's passing is completely overshadowed by the Annabelle doll. I mean, for God's sake, you click on this article and the first thing you're greeted with is Dan and Annabelle, not Dan on his own. You know, like, literally, Dan and Annabelle. Like, that's the first thing that you click on, and then if you go to any of the other articles as well, that's what you're greeted with. You're greeted by the doll, not by Dan. I don't know. Am I just, like, overthinking this? Am I thinking too deep into it? I don't know. I just feel like Zak being involved in an article about it just seems shoehorned and forced. But maybe he had closer connections to Dan Rivera than any of us knew. Who knows? Who knows? If he was a really close and intimate friend, then, not intimate, but, you know, like, you know, close family friend or whatever, fine, fair enough. But as far as I'm aware, I don't think that was the case. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Way down there, jump to get the hell out of that like button and subscribe. And until next time, I'll speak to you later. Peace!